Hello, everyone. Welcome to the All Day Football Show. I am your host, Jackson Kellogg, and today we'll be getting into my NFL power rankings for Week 4. 3 weeks in the books. Hopefully, there will get to be more played, despite the news that came out today with the Titans having 8 people between coaches and players test positive for COVID-19. So hopefully the season gets to continue, not too many road bumps from that. But we're going to act like the season's still going as normal. So getting into number 32, the Jets are just going to be here until they win a game. That's straight up, and I don't think they're going to this season. So I think we're going to start with the Jets every time, and it's going to be the same old thing every time. Jets can't produce anything on offense, and the defense it's low tier. I mean, it's not a dumpster fire, but it's still low tier. Adam Gase needs to be fired, plain and simple. At 31 New York Giants, I dropped them. They got obliterated by the 49ers JV team. Nick Mullins threw for over 300 yards against them. Jerick McKinnon, who's the third string running back with the 49ers right now, and has gone through 2 torn ACLs in the last 2 seasons, it just ran all over them. It was an atrocious performance by the Giants. Like the Jets, I don't see the Giants winning a game this year, so they'll probably be around in the 30s for the rest of the season. Moving down to 30, I have the Bengals. That offensive line is probably the worst in the NFL. I don't think there's one that's worse. There's not a single good player on that offensive line that knows how to protect. And Joey Burrow's taken the hits from it. They can't keep him upright, and they're not getting the playmaking that they need on offense to be able to produce. And the defense hasn't played the greatest either. So, bad on all cylinders for the Bengals right now. At number 29, I have the team that tied the Cincinnati Bengals in the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't understand how you're able to tie a team like the Bengals. I mean, the Eagles don't have a terrible pass rush. I mean, they've got Fletcher Cox, they've got Josh Sweat, a couple other guys on that defensive line that shouldn't have a huge problem getting to Joe Burrow, and they didn't, but they still couldn't make enough plays on offense to this should have been a blowout for the Eagles if they were at full strength. They've dealt with injuries. But I mean, they've dealt with injuries the last couple of years. At some point, injuries isn't an excuse anymore, especially if you look at a team like the 49ers that have won with more injuries than the Eagles. And granted, they played a team that's at worse skill than the Bengals, but at one point, injuries is no more of an excuse. Just admit that your team is a dumpster fire and needs to be blown up and restarted. At 28, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. I really thought the Jaguars were going to be a little bit better after their first 2 games. I guess not, as they just got outplayed on Thursday Night Football by Fitzmagic. They didn't have an answer to stopping them on offense, and they didn't have a way to stop them defensively, and then the offense couldn't get much going, so they couldn't keep up with Fitzmagic. So poor performance by the Jaguars. They're going to have to look to bounce back from it. At 27, the Minnesota Vikings. They've dropped a couple spots. They had a good lead against the Titans, and then blew it Falcon style, which we'll get to in a second, which is going to be really funny. But I mean, you can't blow a lead like that. That's 3 games that the Titans have had close wins, and they've won off of Gostkowski field goals. And the Vikings just became victim number 3 of it. Kirk Cousins looked all right, but I think that was just more of a product of Justin Jefferson balling out. Number 26, the Detroit Lions. I did not expect them to beat the Cardinals. Plain and simple. I thought DeAndre Hopkins was going to get like 15 receptions for like 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. Or at least that's what my fantasy mind told me. I mean, he did well in fantasy football, but wasn't the outcome the Cardinals wanted. Detroit got the close win, 26-23. Move up a couple spots, as showing that they can be competitive against good teams somehow, some way. Whereas a lot of the teams below them have shown that they're not competitive enough yet to compete with the top teams in the league. Ooh. At number 25, Carolina Panthers moved them up a couple spots after their win against the Chargers. Again, a lot of the wins I didn't expect to happen. I did pretty poorly in my picks this past week. I think I still had a winning record at like 8-7-1 or maybe 9-6-1. The Eagles Bengals game still counts as a tie for me. So, Panthers had brighter. They had a brighter performance in the last couple weeks against the Chargers, beating a team that almost beat the Chiefs not too long ago. So, good performance by Carolina. They're gonna have to look to build on that without Christian McCaffrey and hope to be even more competitive when he comes back from his injury. At 24, I have the Dolphins. Great performance on Thursday Night Football. A game that everyone thought was going to be just boring, and a lot of times Thursday Night Footballs are boring. This wasn't particularly boring. It wasn't as exciting as the Browns and Bengals were, but definitely still a good game to watch. It's nice to see the AFC East be a little competitive outside of New England. That way people can't just say, oh, Patriots have an easy division. Well, here's a little bit of competition. So, yeah. Good performance by the Dolphins. With how Fitzmagic's playing, I don't think they're going to throw Tua in anytime soon. I wouldn't be surprised if Tua doesn't play this year, honestly. Because if they win or lose, if they lose, they're just going to have a lower pick. And they'll be able to get someone, a good talent. Maybe like a receiver or a better defensive player for the Dolphins. At 23 of the Broncos, I probably should have them lower, but I still have faith in this defense. It's not completely atrocious, and when this team is completely healthy, they are definitely a competitive team in the AFC. So I'm not giving up on hope for them yet. They did pull Jeff Driscoll pretty early in the game against the Buccaneers. And put Brett Ripien in, but he didn't play much better. So look for Blake Bortles to probably start in Week 4. It was a bad performance by the Broncos, but it could have been a lot worse considering their situation. At 22, I have the Washington Football Team. Not the greatest offensive performance against the Browns this past Sunday. They were competitive, but just definitely outplayed. They couldn't stop the Browns' run, and then couldn't make any plays and had too many turnovers on offense, so they're going to have to look to try and fix that. But they'll have a chance in a super weak division called the NFC East. At 21, we've got the Atlanta Falcons. Nick Foles. Good for him. At 20, I have the Houston Texans. 3 straight games of like top 10 opponents and 3 straight losses. Not a good start to the year for the Texans at 0-3, but the schedule does get easier, so look for them to probably get some more wins down the line. Deshaun Watson has to show that he can be a playmaker though, and not have 3 out of 4 of his of their possessions in the second half be punts and of 3 and outs. At number 19, got the Chargers. After having a really close loss to the Chiefs, losing only from a 58-yard field goal, they definitely did not perform against the Panthers. They definitely would have won on that last play, but Eckler couldn't make the catch. So sucks for them. They'll hopefully try and bounce back. Justin Herbert got to get a little better, but he will. I honestly don't understand why they'd put Tyrod Taylor back in, but that's just my opinion. At 18, I have the Colts. I'm still not buying in on the Colts, and you can say whatever you want, because a lot of people have the Colts in like the top 12. But the Colts, yes, they walloped the Jets defensively. They barely had to play offense. Doesn't matter. Colts are still an overrated team. The defense hasn't played any tough talent yet, and other than maybe Dalvin Cook. But that's all you can really say right now. So they still have to prove that they can beat competitive teams, and I don't know how many of them they get to play this year. At 17, I do have the Bears. How in the world are the Bears at 3-0? I mean, you go 2-0 with Trubisky as the starter, right? And then, I think it was like halfway through the game, a little more than halfway through the game against the Falcons, Trubisky throws an interception. Matt Nagy goes, screw this, I'm benching Trubisky, bringing in Nick Foles. And guess what Nick Foles does? He makes another comeback victory against the Falcons had another comeback loss. 2 in a row. Are the Falcons just cursed with comeback losses? I wonder. Good win by the Bears. Nick Foles is going to be the starter from here on out, according to Matt Nagy. So we'll see how the Bears do from there. I don't think they're a playoff team. I think 3-0 is a fluke. At 16, I have the Raiders. The Raiders got obliterated play-wise by the Patriots. And the Patriots played pretty sloppy, which is why you'll see their position in a bit. But Raiders are going to have to look to get a little better. Definitely seeing how they played against the top competition. Definitely going to have to look to get better if they want to stay competitive and compete for a wild card spot. At 15, I have the Dallas Cowboys. They almost came back against the Seahawks. Almost, but when you have almost, it's the same as nothing, because that's how games work in the NFL. Or in any sport for that matter. Almost isn't enough for a win. And the Cowboys are going to have to look at trying to finish games. If they're going to be in shootouts, they have to start finishing them with wins. They won a shootout against the Falcons, but lost a shootout to the Seahawks on one other team. I forget the third team that they played. Played the Falcons, Seahawks, and the Rams. Well, the game wasn't so much a shootout, but they still lost a close game. So they gotta get better on closing out games. Definitely a good division to work on that, though, as they compete in the NFC East garbage pile. At 14, I have the Cleveland Browns. Good performance against Washington. Washington's definitely a competitive team. They're not just going to give up on the spot, and the Browns just beat the life out of them with the run game again. That's 2 weeks in a row that they've used the run game, and look for them to keep using it as time goes on. It'll definitely give more time for Baker Mayfield to get comfortable in Kevin Stefanski's offense. At 13, I have the Rams. They were down 28-3. 28-3. Wow, comebacks are so common this week. They were down 28-3 to the Bills and led a really nice comeback. Almost came back all the way until Josh Allen threw a nice ball to Stephon Diggs in the end zone to seal the deal for Buffalo's win. Rams definitely competitive, going to compete for a wild card and possibly even the division. But that will depend on how well the rest of their division plays. But definitely look for them to be looking for a playoff spot. Arizona Cardinals, what the hell happened there? Last year, it was a tie between the Lions and the Cardinals because, the Lions were supposed to be dominant, and then Kyler Murray comes up and is like, woo, I'm a playmaker, I'm going to make this a tie. And so they tied the game, right? And then this year, the Lions are like, we want our payback. We should have won last year's game. So guess what we're going to do? We're going to beat a better Cardinals team than what they were last year. And we're a worse Lions team than what we were last year. And we're going to win. Completely astonishing to me. Kyler Murray should just start throwing to DeAndre Hopkins over and over because no one can cover him. In their last 3 games, no one has been able to cover him. So there's no excuse for the Cardinals' loss to the Lions this week, and they're going to have to look to get better, especially in a competitive division like the NFC West, because the 49ers are going to start have to coming back from behind due to their injuries. They're going to get a couple losses here and there, probably. And the Cardinals are going to have to try and take advantage. And this was one of those weeks where they should have taken advantage, and they did not. So that's not a good look for the Cardinals. At 11, I do have the 49ers. Dropped them slightly bit just due to moving up more competitive teams into the top 10. So the drop isn't so much on the Niners' part. They had a good win against the Giants, blew them out with backups. Nick Mullins looked good. Definitely going to be able to do his best. I wouldn't be surprised if when Nick Mullins' contract runs out that he gets a chance to be a starter somewhere. Definitely has developed under Kyle Shanahan. And he's going to do his best to try and carry this 49ers team to the best they can with all their injuries. Getting into the top 10, I got New Orleans at number 10. That's 2 straight weeks. They had a pretty dominant performance in week 1 against the Bucs. And then 2 straight weeks they just couldn't do anything. They got beat by the Raiders, and then they got, Aaron Rodgers just threw the ball deep every time and scored. I mean, it was a bad performance by the Saints defense, and Drew Brees' arm looks weaker and weaker every time I see it. I watched the game, and there were a couple times where Brees, it looked like he was going to unload deep, like Brees of old, and then he'd just take it back and get sacked or throw it away or something like Brees. And he's not throwing these. Brees didn't care about the player being open. He'd throw it and expect the receiver to go get it. There's 2 issues right now is Michael Thomas is out, so he doesn't have his number 1 receiver. And Brees' arm is definitely getting weaker as he's realizing that, and he's not throwing those deep balls because he doesn't have the strength to get them. So definitely an issue for the Saints, and it's not looking good for my Super Bowl pick right now. At number 9, I have the Steelers. The Steelers needed to get a win against a competitive team, and the Texans were one of them. Definitely showed that they can beat a decent talent. They're going to have to keep going, though, in order to keep up in an AFC. The AFC wildcard race is going to be between a lot of teams. You're going to have the loser, the Patriots, Bills. You're going to have the Raiders in there, the Chargers, the Browns, Titans, Texans. It's going to be a big competition for those 3 wildcard spots, and the Steelers are going to have to try their best to keep up and not lose out one of those 3 spots. Speaking of Titans, at number 8, I have the Titans. Honestly, I probably shouldn't have moved them up as far as I did, but they're 3-0. They've won 3 straight on Stephen Gostkowski game-winning field goals. Why do we have Nick Folk as the kicker still? Titans still rolling. Derrick Henry, they're going to have to try and get Derrick Henry involved more, as he's definitely not hitting his ceiling. So definitely higher expectations for the Titans. That should not have been as close of a game against the Vikings as it was, but they still pulled out with the win. At number 7, I have the Buccaneers. Good dominant win against the Broncos. They definitely needed it. Boosted confidence for this team, who's trying to compete in a very tough NFC. Definitely going to be very difficult. If between the Saints and the Buccaneers, one's going to win the division, the other's going to have to compete with the rest of the NFC West for those wildcard spots. Because Bears, Lions, Vikings, they're not going to be close enough. And Eagles, Washington, Giants aren't going to be close enough. So it's going to be the division winner of the NFC West and the other 3 mixed with the loser of the Bucs, Saints competing for the 3 wildcard spots. So one of them's not going to make it. Right now I have it as the Niners being the one left out, but that could change. It still could be the Buccaneers, which is why the Buccaneers have to stay competitive in their games. At 6, I left the Patriots where they are, and that means that I moved the Bills ahead, and that's because the Patriots, though they won and pretty convincingly against the Raiders, they played sloppy. They definitely played sloppy. Cam Newton was throwing balls in places he shouldn't have. It wasn't the best in decision-making. The running backs, all of them, all the running backs that played looked great. Between Michelle, who I'm always negative on, Rex Burkhead, who I'm also always negative on, scored 3 touchdowns. Michelle ran for over 100 yards. And undrafted free agent J.J. Taylor, who I was high on during training camp, looked pretty damn good too. So, good performance by the Patriots running backs. it's optimistic to see that they got such a dominant win while playing sloppy. Especially the defense wasn't the greatest. They had a couple turnovers, but other than that, they weren't completely dominant. So if that's just saying that their ceiling is super high. And honestly, after watching Monday night's game between the Ravens and the Chiefs, I think the Patriots actually have a shot at the top two teams in the AFC. At number 5, I do have Buffalo. I moved them ahead of the Patriots because the Bills do have a better record, and they had a good win against a competitive team like the Rams, where the Patriots haven't beaten a top tier talent team yet. The Raiders aren't really top tier. The Bills beat a team like the Rams, so I'll move them up for that reason. Josh Allen's looking better than I expected. As of right now, he's definitely with Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson in the MVP conversation. Although, 3 games in, still a lot to play. But he's definitely up in that conversation right now. Team's looking good right now. At number 4, I have the Baltimore Ravens. Wow. I thought that game was going to be a little bit more closer. I did not expect the Ravens to absolutely get blown out on all cylinders. On the score, you wouldn't really tell, but just by play. The Ravens played atrociously, and the Chiefs took advantage. Mahomes just threw all over them. In my fantasy league, he got over 60 fantasy points. Crazy performance by Mahomes. Forget which Ravens. I think it was Lamar Jackson said it. The Chiefs are the Ravens' kryptonite. Now, I don't completely agree with that. I think I'm going to make it a little more broader. The Ravens' kryptonite is playing in, when the lights shine brightest. When's the last time they made it past the first round of the playoffs in the last couple of years? Not recently. They haven't. This game was supposed to be, is Lamar better than Mahomes? No, he is not. And based off of this game, he's not that close. Definitely has to look better after being reigning MVP. Getting into the top 3, I got Seahawks at number 3. They held off Dallas in a high-scoring game. Russell Wilson has the most touchdowns through 3 weeks of any quarterback all time. Broke the record for that. Crazy performance by Russell Wilson. I think he threw for another 5 touchdowns and could have had a 6 if DK Metcalf didn't try to show off. DK Metcalf has to get some credit for being a good receiver, but I think he's trying to showboat too much. Yes, you're playing good, but don't get too cocky. It's only your second year in the league. Plenty others have been in your situation and have fallen, so don't get too cocky if you're DK Metcalf. Bad injuries came up for Seattle, though, as Jamal Adams and Chris Carson did get injured, so they're going to have to look to try and figure out what to do from those situations. At number 2, I have the Packers. The Packers looked dominant in their win against the Saints. It wasn't even close. They played great defensive game, although they let up a ton of points. They could have done a better job defensively, but still a decent performance. We know it's not their ceiling, and Aaron Rodgers is showing that they should have drafted T. Higgins and not Jordan Love with that late first-round pick. Or Michael Pittman. Either of the two would have been good receivers to take there. As Aaron Rodgers is chucking dimes to players like Alan Lazard and Marquez Valdes-Scantling. So, Aaron Rodgers is definitely playing with that chip on his shoulder, and that chip is bigger and heavier than it's ever been. And I wouldn't be surprised if Rodgers doesn't win MVP, the Packers are going to trade him and get whatever they can for him because they want Jordan Love to play, and you can tell with the fact that they traded up for him. Although he's sitting third string behind Tim Boyle. So I honestly don't know what the Packers are doing decision-wise. I don't think Jordan Love's going to be the next Aaron Rodgers, but we'll find out. And that means at number 1, I still have the Kansas City Chiefs. When everyone dropped the Chiefs last week in their power rankings from number 1, I laughed. I laughed because they dropped them and put the Ravens or the Seahawks as number 1. And I'm like, why would you do that? Every team has a down game. All right, so they had a close game against the Chargers in week 2, but it wasn't overall atrocious. So they come in Monday night and dominate the Ravens on all fronts. Wasn't even close. And they just showed why they are the best team in the league and why they're the reigning Super Bowl champs. So don't sleep on Kansas City. They're going to be going back to the Super Bowl this year as there's no one close in competition. And at this point, I'd probably put the Patriots as a closer bet to beat the Chiefs than the Ravens right now. So Chiefs are definitely looking like the best team in the AFC and possibly the NFL. But thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoy these videos. Definitely, I enjoy doing them. Hope you guys do too. Please subscribe, leave a like if you did enjoy it, and hope you all have a great week. Thursday Night Football is Jets Broncos. You'll get my picks for that on Thursday. Let's see if the Patriots can compete with the Chiefs in the AFC. Go Pats!